The ideas in these documents resonated with Americans about history, shaping ideals which our nation was based. During and after the American Revolution, increased awareness of inequalities in society motivated individuals to call for abolition of slavery, greater political democracy, and new state and national forms of government. In response to women's participation in the American Revolution, Enlightenment ideas, women's appeal, expanded roles to an ideal, where it comes in, ladies, of Republican motherhood, and gained popularity. They called on women to teach Republican values within the family and granted women a new importance of political culture. The American Revolution set forth ideas about the Declaration of Independence, specifically spelled out, reverberated in France, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and all of the Latin American revolutions you guys covered, starting with the Mexican Revolution, and then Simone Bolivar pretty much starting all of South America on fire. Any questions on these? So again, the Second Great Awakening, the questioning of, the difference between predestination and salvation, questioning of church leadership, the Enlightenment, which is the questioning of government, if they don't give you what you need. That's the idea that all men are created equal, including the slaves, maybe even including women as well, because they want to give more freedom to these people, especially to slaves. So that's when the first abolitionist society started forming, is right around this time period, 1775, 1776. You'll see the first abolitionist societies form. Common sense, of course, it just makes sense to break free. Why is that tiny little island ruling up for a big place that's a tiny little island? That makes no sense. Any other questions? Slave trade would be banned, but not until 1807, set by the Constitution, 20 years after the Constitution was formed, 1787.
Was the first Great Awakening salvation versus predestination?
Correct.
Who were the two?
The two preachers in Salvation versus Predestination, the New Light preachers would be Jonathan Edwards, he's the spider guy, right? God hates you. And the other guy was George Whitefield. George Whitefield's the one who convinced Ben Franklin to give up his cash.
What does he have to do with spider?
He hated, like, God hates you like you hate a spider. You want to throw it in the fire. God thinks the same of you. But you can fix that if you're doing good works here on earth. Any other questions here? Again, with this in mind, remember women had the right to vote in Jersey until 1804. They gave them that right, and then they took it away. Still 3-2. Now it's number 2. After declaring independence, American political leaders created new constitutions and Declaration of Rights, articulated the role of state and federal governments while protecting individual liberties, limiting centralized power and excessive popular influence. Many new state constitutions place their power in the legislative branch, maintaining property qualifications for voting and citizenship. So again, only the moneyed elite really have a voice in government at this point. We're going to see as we go through this, of course, because more and more people will have that chance. Articles of Confederation specifically spelled out, so make sure you know the articles. Unified the newly independent states, creating a central government with very limited power, because we didn't want a strong central government, because that's what we were fighting against. After the revolution, difficulties over international trade, finance, interstate commerce, foreign relations, internal unrest led to calls for a stronger government. So especially the limits on commerce, right? The limits on the ability to tax. They have no ability to tax at all whatsoever. And the internal unrest, what is that? Internal unrest is a certain thing that happens where we realize the articles were garbage. Shays Rebellion, which is right there. So when Shays Rebellion happened, they're like, we can't stop even the angry farmers from killing us all. We probably should have a stronger central government to control this. Do make sure you look at the strengths and weaknesses chart between the articles and the Declaration, the Constitution. They're ruled by what they would call mobocracy. They don't want the mob ruling things. They want an orderly system of government where we vote on things and that's all taken care of. Delegates from the states participated in constitutional conventions. They had compromises on the Constitution, a limited lot of them. Federalism, which is the federal government ruling with the state government. Separation of powers, 3 different branches of government. So we have our checks and balances, the electoral college, the New Jersey versus the Virginia plan and the great compromise that comes out of it, the 3/5 compromise regarding slavery. The New Jersey and Virginia plan, that's the House and the Senate today. How many representatives you have? Is it equal or are we based on population? The debate over ratifying the Constitution, anti-federalists opposed ratification with federalists. These principles are articulated in the Federalist Papers written by, spelled out, Hamilton and Madison. Those are the two primary authors, there are two others. Federalists and ratification. Constitution by promising the addition of Bill of Rights. So the anti-feds get the Bill of Rights put on there as well. Enumerating individual rights and explicitly restricting the powers of the federal government. Any questions on any of these? Yeah.
The Federalists versus the anti-Federalists.
So make sure you know what they want. Federalists want the strong central government because they see this mobocracy ruling and they see the society just destroying itself from within, and we can't get anything done, and we need some taxation ability, our government's broke. Whereas the anti-Fed said, no, the strong central government is exactly precisely what we fought against. Why would we want to institute that where now we have new kings basically in charge of ourselves? We can't have that unless we get some, separation between that. That would be the Bill of Rights. We need some protections against this huge, strong government. Otherwise, we're not ratifying the thing. Yes?
Why Shays Rebellion started it?
Shays Rebellion started because these poor farmers were basically being taken advantage of. So during the revolution, government had no money. So like, you know what? We'll pay you in land. Here you go, have some land. It's a worthless certificate at the point, and you can't do anything. The land's far out on the frontier. So like, what is this? So some slimy guys came around and asked, hey, that's worth $100? Well, I'll give you $1. $1's better than nothing. They give it to them. Well, then Congress, this is the Continental Congress, they decide, you know what? We're going to value those at face value, at full value. We're going to give them the full 100 for it. Well, I don't have it anymore. These slick shysters now have the money, and the farmers were mad because they were foreclosing on their farms. And so they went and shut the farms down violently with guns. And then that was like, the founding fathers were like, oh no, we can't even stop farmers from shutting our whole government down. We need to have a stronger central government. The only thing that stopped Shays Rebellion was the rich people from Boston raised a private militia to stop it. So like, we're gonna have a lot of these, a lot of bloodshed. We're gonna look like, even though it hadn't happened yet, the French Revolution and all of its successes where they were killing all kinds of people, rich people especially. They're like, we're not doing that. We're gonna have a stronger central government. Patrick Henry, he advocates for breaking free from England, give me liberty or give me death guy, and he's also a leading anti-federalist. So he goes kind of up against Madison and Hamilton at this point. Yes?
Do we need to know the Whiskey Rebellion at all?
The whiskey is coming up chronologically. It's after the revolution, because that shows that the federal government has the strength and power and it's legitimate. By the way, if you go see the play Hamilton, the guy who played Aaron Burr is back for a limited run. He's going to do 12 weeks worth of doing Aaron Burr again. So if you ever get up to Broadway, you can see him, the original Burr. Any other questions here? Still 3-2, but now it's number 3. New forms of national culture and political institutions developed in the United States alongside regional variations and differences, economic, social, political, and foreign policy. So during the presidential administrations of Washington and Adams, political leaders created institutions and precedents that put the principles of the Constitution into practice. They had to start from scratch and build the government. Political leaders in 1790 took a variety of positions on issues like the relationship between national government and states, economic policy, foreign policy, and the balance between liberty and order. This led to the formation of political parties, most significantly the Federalists by Alexander Hamilton, Democratic Republicans by Jefferson and Madison. The expansion of slavery in the Deep South and adjacent Western territories or lands raising anti-slavery sentiment to create a distinctive regional attitude, sort of distinction. So the spirit of 76, the northern states all began shedding slavery to some degree, in some way, shape, or form. But the southern colonies southern states are definitely going to hold on to slavery. Ideas about national identity found increasing expression in works of art, literature, and architecture. Look at the top one here. Moving on here. make sure you know the differences between Federalists and Democratic Republicans. There's a chart that I've given you. It's in that chapter as well. You don't have it. Yeah. So during the what they call the quasi war between Britain and France, they were fighting with each other, and they were like messing with our trade as well. Our ships were being stopped. So the French were taking cargo off of them, and the British were taking sailors off of them and pressing them. Then Washington wanted nothing to do with any of those. So he's like, you know what? I need to remain neutral. Well, the French were pressing us though because we had a treaty of alliance with them. They're like, hey, what about that treaty? We helped you. You need to help us back. He's like, well, what happened to your king? Oh, he's quite dead. Well, I have no more treaty. I made it with him, not with your government. So he backed out of it because we were way too weak. If we got sucked into another war, we might not have even lasted 5 years. Yes.
Virginia and Kentucky were those.
So the Alien and Sedition Acts were passed, where the Federalist Party really was targeting out the Democratic Republicans because the Alien Act, which is taking out alien enemies of the state, 1798, that was really designed to take out the French people. And the French people were joining the Democratic Republican Party. The Sedition Act, the Democratic Republican newspapers were attacking the Adams government. He didn't like that, so this shut them up because it threw editors of newspapers in jail. But it didn't throw Federalist editors in jail, so it was kind of an interesting dichotomy there. And because the Hamilton and Jefferson and Madison, the leaders of the Democratic Republicans, rightfully saw the power of the government as being turned on a political party and political enemies. They thought that was totally wrong. This is a political thing. This is nothing more than an attack on them, politically speaking, but using the power of the government. They said, you know what? We don't have to follow the law. The law is stupid, don't follow it, pretty much is what the Virginia and Kentucky were all saying. Neither Virginia nor Kentucky adopted these things, but the idea of nullification. If a law is dumb, just don't follow it, just nullify the law, starts this idea in people's minds. They'll come back up again, as we'll see with the nullification crisis and the tariff in the 1830s, and it will rise its head again, most notably during the Civil War. Now that whole idea is kind of mostly, for the most part, died down, but there's still, now and then, people think that a lot doesn't matter, we're not following it. Any other questions here? George Washington's farewell address, the election of 1800, which is a peaceful transfer of power. There's your whiskey rebellion, showing that the federal government's in charge and is legitimate. You're not the declaration, it's not the declaration, you can't say we're fighting against tyranny because you elected your leaders. If you didn't elect your leader and they're not speaking for you, well, that's your own problem. You should fight against the government. Any questions here? No, in regards to slavery, most founding fathers believed slavery was dying off because it was pretty much, what's the crop at this point in time? This is before 1800. Tobacco, and it was really destroying the soil. George Washington even switched out from right just before the Revolution, I think, or just after. He stopped growing tobacco because it was so detrimental to the soil. It was just, you could never grow as much. It would always yield less and less and less over time to the point where it's diminishing returns, so why bother? So they thought it was just going to go away until Eli Whitney as cotton gin pop up, and then slavery is going to increase tremendously. And the only school you need to know, art school, Hudson River School, that's just all of paintings of outside and all of our nature and beauty. Now we're up to 3-3, the last one. But we have 3 of these, I think. Migration in North America. Competition over resources and boundaries and trade intensified between peoples and nations. The decades after the American independence, interactions between different groups resulted in competition for resources, shifting alliances, and cultural blending. So, what led to the Native American conflicts in the early expansion period, or something to that effect. American Indians adjusted their alliances with Europeans and other tribes and the U.S. to limit migrations of white settlers, maintain control of their lands and natural resources. British alliances with American Indians contributed to tensions between us and Britain as well. Put that in the back. Do you have the thing with it? You put it with it so I can remember which one it is. So all of the competition. Of course, Britain are gonna leave forts on the frontier, they're supposed to leave by the terms of the Treaty of 1783, Treaty of Paris, but they don't. And increasing numbers of migrants from North America and other parts of the world move westward. Frontier cultures develop. We continue to grow, fueling society, political, ethnic tensions. Scots-Irish, the Paxton boys are gonna rebel because they wanted, they were having, just like Bacon's Rebellion, they were having trouble with Native Americans, didn't think they were being protected. This is during the American Revolution. Ben Franklin talks about a burning down Philly. Whiskey Rebellion, of course, we've already covered that. They're all Scots-Irish troublemakers of American history. As settlers moved westward during the 1780s, Congress enacted the Northwest Ordinance, specifically spelled out, which admitted new states, promoted public education, protection of private property, and most interestingly, most important, a ban on slavery. The first law where they banned slavery, because again, they didn't think slavery was going to last long. So in 1787, like, no, that whole northwestern area, you can't have slavery. Ambiguous relationship with federal government and the American Indian tribes contributed problems regarding treaties, Indian legal claims, and the seizure of their land. So who can negotiate with the natives? Well, it's supposed to only be the federal government, but the states start negotiating separate treaties and deals with them, and the natives are very confused. There's a lot of warfare and conflict going on. The Battle of Fallen Timbers and the Treaty of Greenville will come out of all of this. Spanish, supported by labor of local American Indians, expanded their mission settlements in California. So like the last mission they had was in 1776. They had the Sonoma, was their last one. These provided opportunities for social mobility among soldiers and led to cultural blending. So we have Spanish Florida here, right? After the French and Indian War, it would be British held for a short period of time. Then it goes back to Spanish's hands afterward. Any questions?
Was that saying about Spanish Florida?
Vaqueros, those are cowboys. Cultural blending thing, yes.
There it said section 16, education.
Yeah, so when they sell, remember they grid out the system, like if you ever fly over a lot of places, you'll see this like checkerboard pattern of fields or houses and whatnot. It's because they grid it all up, sell it in acre, it's 680 acres, and it just keeps subdividing further and further down. And so when they sell section 16, which is a mile square, that whole land purchase, that money from that goes to funding education for that bigger giant square. So little area, once it's sold, it can provide schoolhouses for that area. Because they wanted to educate the population. All right, so it's number 2. Continued presence of European powers in North America challenged the United States to find ways to safeguard its borders, maintain neutral trading rights, and promote its economic interests. How did the United States protect itself and grow during this time period? The United States forged diplomatic initiatives aimed at dealing with continued British and Spanish presence, as well as settlers migrating beyond the Appalachians, and wanted free trade in the Mississippi River, which is hugely important to early America. So there's those 2 treaties you should know. Jay's Treaty, which was regarded as garbage by most Americans because it made friendly trading status with the British and let them keep their troops on our forts, on our frontier. And then Pinckney's Treaty, which is a very popular treaty because it opened Mississippi up to trade. But they combined both of those to get them ratified at once. Of course, the British are giving guns to the natives out there as well, and impressing our sailors at sea. That's going to be the War of 1812 later. The war between Britain and France resulting from the French Revolution presented challenges in the United States over free trade, foreign policy, and created political disagreement. George Washington's farewell address encouraged national unity against political factions, warns against permanent foreign alliances. Yes.
Was the Embargo Acts the result of impressment?
The Embargo Acts, yes. The impressment and the fact that the British were still, Britain and France were both still at war. So the embargo is going to be against France as well as, which we're stopping our ships and taking trade out of them. Until one or the other finally said, hey, we'll stop doing that, which the French lied and said they were gonna. We're like, oh, okay, and they lied and continue doing what they're doing. Any questions on these things? The XYZ affair, the
Yes, the XYZ.
So the XYZ affair, so again, back with our French and British war. So we sent ambassadors over to France to deal with them. Hey, quit taking stuff off of our ships. So we sent ambassadors. Now our ambassadors should be on the level of their ambassador, their foreign minister. But if we had to deal with some low-level dudes and they demand a bribe, and then they're like, well, the high-level dude, Monsieur Talleyrand, is gonna want a bigger bribe. We're like, we're not paying a bribe to talk to you about stopping and taking our stuff off our ships. So we start arming ourselves. So under John Adams, we start building a navy at that point, and which will come in handy in the War of 1812. Notice that alien and sedition acts have come up at least twice, maybe 3 times now. Several things have come up over and over again, which again makes this a lot easier to study for. Because if you really know those things, that will be helpful. American Revolution impact on French and Haiti. So the declaration, right? The Haiti overthrows their government, sets up an independent government, throws out the Frenchies, I should say, and the French have their own revolution and kick out their, well, just kill their own king. That is it. The next one's going to be up to